Hello and welcome to another Modern League video here on ModernNexus.com. My name is Ryland, also known as Holy Shamgar on Twitch. Today we're going to be playing with a Goryo's As Foretold deck. This deck, and almost this exact list, excuse me for having it piled this way here, let's fix that right up. This deck and almost this exact list did well in SCG Baltimore, did top 8 that event. It was a team event. But yeah, it was just a couple cards different in the sideboard, and I think the main deck had a Thirst for Knowledge over one of these Is It Charms. But other than that, I believe it was exactly the same. I did start with that list, obviously, originally on my stream, and we eventually just changed a couple really small things. But anyway, for anyone who's unfamiliar, it's got a similar shell, I guess, very, very thin similarity shell, but similar nonetheless, to a mono blue Living End deck, which sprouted up some number of months ago, that was attempting to As Foretold, Living End, with a bunch of mono blue cyclers, Taliaferro West, things like that, to help find Living End. Obviously, the Ancestrals as well to go along with the As Foretolds. This deck asks a slightly different question, and that is, what can we do that's a little more busted with As Foretold and Living End? And the answer to that, of course, is win the game on the spot with Kiki-Jiki and Deceiver Exarch. Just to have another creature to reanimate to go well with that. We've got Gristlebrand, helps us dig towards that combo. And then Goryo's Vengeance, which can put either Gristlebrand into play to hit our opponent for 7 and start drawing up a Storm, or even put Kiki-Jiki into play to combo off with Exarch, which is a common line with the deck as well. You find Is It Charm and Faithless Looting as enablers for that combo, both to dig us deeper through our deck and bin the things that we want to Living End, and Goryo's Vengeance. Jace also doing that job, as well as being a reasonable Goryo's Vengeance target. A not uncommon sequence of plays in this deck is to use Goryo's Vengeance to target your Jace in your yard, bring Jace into play, flip Jace, minus target Goryo's Vengeance something else. Obviously, you're really only going to do that in spots where your opponent clearly doesn't have interaction. Otherwise, you're probably just going to go for Goryo's on something more exciting in the first place, but it's not that uncommon of a line since you get sort of a free Jace out of the deal. Couple Mana Monkeys to help us cast As Foretold's earlier. This can be really relevant in matchups where you're racing or where you just need to try to resolve this on a turn where your opponent did not expect you to be able to, namely turn 2. But it can also help on turns where you Goryo's Vengeance, a Gristlebrand, to try to set up by having, a lot more mana than you'd expect on that turn. So yeah, basically that's what we're trying to do for the most part. We're trying to kill people with Deceiver Exarchs and Kiki-Jikis, but sometimes you just Living End a Gristlebrand, and that's what you got. Don't forget, of course, that Living End is also a Wrath. It's basically a Plague Wind that's also putting things like this into play, so can be pretty exciting in that regard. Oh, I also did not mention Lightning Axe, sort of to go with our Is It Charms as our removal suite. Obviously helps us as an enabler by discarding some of the fatties so that we can go ahead and Vengeance or Living in them in the future. Sideboard's a little wonky, but we got Brutalities, Anger the Gods, Engineering Explosives. Nothing particularly unusual or exciting there. Gaunties as another value Vengeance target that we can actually hardcast. It's good against Tarmogoyf decks. Sorcerous Spyglass as a way to interact with Relic of Progenitus primarily. That card can be a huge hassle. There's some other big problem that Sorcerous Spyglass solves that is escaping my mind at the moment. Well, I guess we'll just stick with Relic for now, but certainly there are other matchups it's good in. I bring it against Amulet, Tron. Tron has Relic, of course, but things like that. You have Repeal as a way of bouncing random hate when you need to combo using your graveyard. Nimble Obstructionist, also good against Relic and Tron in general. Swansong and Dispel is a way of forcing things through. Dispel just generally better against control decks, but Swansong flexible in the regard that it can counter Rest in Peace, things like that. So you get to bring it in matchups where you're concerned with their ability to cast enchantment-based Graveyard Hate for the most part. So that's what we're working with today. We'll go ahead and hop into those games and see how it goes.